Chag Sameach, everyone. A good Yontif, a good festival. You know, I always get a little bit sad when it comes to Shemini Atzeret because we've been so busy. We've had so many holidays and festivals and things that have sustained us here over the past many weeks, and now this is it. This is the last day, and there's a teaching about that. Of course, there's so many teachings. The Torah is just rich with them. That we spend 7 days of Sukkot giving 10 sacrifices a day. What's listed in Torah, 10 different sacrifices every single day for each of the days adds up to a total of 70. And when we get to Shemini Atzeret, there's only one. Suddenly we go from 10 to 1. And the rabbis teach that this is to let us know that we've had this festival of Sukkot to invite in guests, to bring in the world, to be able to celebrate our season together, a season of joy. And after all that energy we pour out into the world, we get to take this day for ourselves. So we're so glad you've joined us online, in person, here in our sanctuary for this service for Shemini Atzeret Yizkor. We continue in our packets at the top of page 1. Hodu Ladonai Ki Tov.
Ki le'olam chasto chasto. Odu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto.
Today we rejoice in Torah as we complete and begin its reading again. We rejoice in the truth that Torah brings to our people. Its teachings are eternal and inexhaustible. They are life-giving and life-renewing. Today we give thanks for the precious gift of Torah. We love it for the depth of its humanity and revere it for its mysterious power. May our study of Torah enrich our lives and bring gladness to our people. We continue with that expression of gladness. Hallelujah, Psalm 150.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, bekocho. Hallelujah, bekirauzo. Hallelujah, bigvurotav. Hallelujah, Kirov Gudlo. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, beteka shofar. Hallelujah, benevo vechinor. Hallelujah, betofu machol. Hallelujah, beminim beugav. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, betzilzalei shama. Hallelujah, betzilzalei trua. Kol hanshama tehallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
So, I'm not going to lie, we had a wonderful party last night. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of people that joined us to celebrate and to enjoy Simchat Torah together. I know that there are a lot of people with us online right now that just warms my heart. Sometimes it's easier to join services from your bed than it is to come to temple and join services. So we're delighted that you're here with us. We are going to celebrate this day together as we move on to a creation reading, a reading recognizing that light that was created in the first day as we begin the Torah again. In the beginning, even then, a new light was sown for the righteous, a promise that your light would become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Author of language and light, help us to use words as you have to cast light. Help us Use words as you have to cast light into dark waters and draw out justice and truth. We continue with V'ha'er Einenu, Baruch Ata Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot.
V'ha'er einenu b'toratecha, v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yached levaveinu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha, v'ha'er einenu b'toratecha, v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yached levaveinu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha, v'lo nevosh, v'lo nekalem, v'lo nekashel, le'olam va'ed, ki b'shem kodshecha, hagadol v'hanora b'tachnu, nagila v'nismecha, nagila v'nismecha v'yeshuatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Amen.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivon Malchuto le'olam va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shitecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'v'shofecha u'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al-yedecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'hisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Mi chamocha ma'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Shira chadasha, shibchu geulim, lesimcha sefat hayam. Yachad kulam, hodu ve'himlechu, ve'amru. Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch.
moment, we're going to enter into the Amidah. A special note for those following along that we have an insertion this morning, a recognition that our festivals, they follow the seasons, and so we will be changing our prayer for dew in the summer to a prayer for rain in the winter, not here but in Israel, rather, as their seasons correlate with our festivals. We are, as mentioned, about to enter into the Amidah, and so we rise for Tzur Yisrael before our blessing for rain.
Tzur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvtechenu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
O source of life at this season, our people in the land of Israel have prayed for rain and dew, for sustenance and health. We too now call upon you. Grant that all your children may enjoy the fruits of the earth in abundance, and that none may ever suffer hunger. May rain and dew descend in season. Livracha velo liklala, lechaim velo lemavet, lesova velo lerazon. And we ask for blessing and not for curse, for life and not death, for abundance, not want.
Please rise. Adonai sefatai tivtach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hozer U'Moshiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol atah Rav leHoshia. Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem. Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim. Somech Noflim Berofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah l'chachayot Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. We continue with a quiet words.
To Janet and Natalie for a most beautiful Hallel riff going on there. That's a lovely little gloss as we have our festival to enjoy a little bit of extra simcha, and we sing these verses from Psalms in order to reconnect with that moment of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of going out of Egypt, when our ancestors as well would have journeyed to the temple. So this morning, we had a little bit of an alternative idea here. Rather than the Torah service that we did last night, repeating it over, we had a fantastic set of readers. Was it 5 or 6 readers? How many did we end up with? 6 readers we had to read the entirety of both readings from Zot HaBracha, straight in with no breath, all the way to Bereshit. And so this morning, we're going to dive into Torah in a different way. And as we talk about Torah, I'm going to use this as an opportunity for shameless self-promotion. I'm just going to say that. I get to start a class on Wednesday night, the last Wednesday in October, about Chazal. Chazal are Chachbeinu, Zichronam Libracha, the wise students of Torah, who are of blessed memory. These are the first rabbis that indeed took our tradition from being something observed in Jerusalem and at the temple into the Judaism that we know today. And in particular, the way that they related to Torah. I have this discussion with our B'nai Mitzvah students and our kids in our religious school all the time that when we look at the beginning of Torah, like we did last night, there is no title page. There is no table of contents. There is no marking that indicates that this is the book that it is. And Torah, rather, is just a word that means learning and instruction. Those instructions we mean most specifically that Moses received and brought to our people, which have been passed on and inherited. And so I'm delighted to be able to dive into Torah a little bit, and hopefully those of you here in the room will discuss here with me. So there are some sheets, Jackie, actually, or Joe, if the sheets could be passed around. Does everyone have one of these with the text on it? No, we've got one with one. We need some with others here in the room. Online, you're going to be able to see the text too. We've worked up a little rig, so hopefully you're able to see and hear me. And by the way, I'm going to come later and I'm going to read all the comments through the text box. So if you have questions or comments, But really here, I've got a series of texts. These all come, if we talk about the Torah, there's Torah shebiktav, the Torah that is kativ, that it's written, kativa. And then we have Torah sheba'al pei. Anyone in the room, what is pei? What is a pei? An elevator? No, what was it? Pei? Pei is a mouth. So Torah sheba'al pei, Torah that is oral Torah, and the rabbis in particular, their oral Torah. If we look to the book of Pirkei Avot, the earliest sense of what the rabbis' oral Torah, this other Torah that they brought alongside Torah to complement it, to give explanation to it. If you wanted to know how to observe Shemini Atzeret, or for that matter, Sukkot, or any of the holidays or festivals, you get a little bit in Torah. Like they'll tell you the date to start, they'll tell you the basics of what to do. You're either going out to collect your harvest and dwelling in your sukkah, but they don't really tell you the specifics how to do that. We look to the oral Torah for that. And here in Avot, we have some of the earliest wisdom of the rabbis. In fact, the verses that we just recited, beautiful composition by our music director emerita, Natalie Conrad, Al Shlosha Devarim Ha'olam Omed. It's taught by Shimon the Righteous. Shimon the Righteous, by the way, credited as being the person who wrote the Amidah, the prayer that we recite as part of every service that we have, that he had this teaching, Al Shlosha Devarim Ha'olam Omed, on three things the world stands. Al Ha-Torah, teaching, instruction, we just talked about it. Al Ha-Avodah, Avodah, it means to, someone might have been part of a youth group called Avodah once upon a time, I don't know. What's Avodah mean? That's exactly right. So work, but in particular, because there's multiple words for work in Hebrew, we have malachot, which are acts which work to build up the world. They're part of God's malacha, part of God's dominion, is one specific kind of work that's outlawed. We don't change the outer world on Yomei Tovim, on Yom Tovs. We don't change the world on Shabbat. We do a different kind of work to change not the world around us, but the world within us. We do avodah, sacred worship, in connecting with God to help ourselves find the resolution to grow as people. And finally, gimilut chasadim, which means anyone? Acts of loving kindness. On these three things, the world stands. And so we're going to dive into the one leg of this little tripod, Torah, and hopefully get some good discussion out of here. We're moving on to Avot, Mishnah 2, verse 2. And why do I only have one page of this? There's multiple pages of this printout. Sorry. Hold on just a second. We're having printer difficulties here. Thank you, Janet. She's grabbing me a page right now. In the Hebrew, I have that. Rabban Gamliel. Oh, Gamliel, the Nasi, one of the leaders of the Sanhedrin. He is the son of, the one who's the son of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi of Judah, the prince, who actually wrote down the words of Mishnah sometime later. Yafeh Talmud Torah im derech eretz. That it is best, it is most good. Does anyone else have the second page in here? Oh, we're going to do us all a solid. 1 second. Turn on the TV. Put it up on like we do today. They have the same thing, that there's multiple Gamliels. Oh, there it is, right up on the screen. I'm getting pretty good at this tech business. You better be careful if I ever decide I don't want to be a rabbi anymore. That would never happen. All right, here we go. Rabbi Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Judah HaNasi, said, excellent is the study of Torah when combined with, and I translated it here as common decency. The literal words are derech eretz. Derech eretz, what'd you say? So derech means way. I've got a brother named Derek, so Derek is way. Eretz is not right, but what does it mean, Natalie? The land, Derech Eretz, the way of the land. And it's interesting, this term, Derech Eretz, it evolves through rabbinic discussion. Derech Eretz was actually something that they used to, in their earlier writings, the rabbis are more condescending towards Derech Eretz. It's like kind of like a simpleton, a boor. They don't generally thought of as illiterate, but then there's this transformation, and they come to associate that sort of commitment and work and being involved in the land with decency, with goodness, with having street smarts, we might say in our world today, right? So here, beautiful. Beautiful is Torah with common decency, derech eretz, the way that that person who works the land goes. They guide the mind to forget sin, but study of Torah, which is not combined with worldly occupation, in the end comes to be neglected and is fated for sin. They're saying that both are important here in that text. Do you see that? You see how they're saying that both are important, that we have to want our Torah that we learn in this space, that we take out of the ark and read from, we need that Torah to transform us, to help us to grow, to become better people, to occupy our world better with goodness. Unless you guys start discussing and interrupting me, I'm telling you, I could talk about this for hours, and I'm just going to keep going. So you've had your warning now. Here we go. Heaven, and all who labor for the community, all who labor for the community should labor with them for the sake of heaven. They bring merit to their forefathers and sustains them, and their righteousness endures forever. What does that mean? I know that's probably not the best translation. I did it in a little bit of a rush over the past few days, but what does that mean? All who labor for the sake of the community, they should labor with them. With what? With Torah and with common decency, right? That's what we're talking about. They should labor with Torah and common decency for the sake of heaven, l'shem shamayim, a very famous phrase that we should always do arguments, work, l'shem shamayim. It comes up a lot that we're serving this higher purpose. That comes back to avodah that we just talked about a moment ago, right? Avodah, that we engage in worship for the sake of heaven. That they bring merit to their forefathers, not only when we engage in these acts and sustain Torah and teach Torah and bring it down through generations, is it good for us? It's good for our ancestors, for the world around us, for those that are part of this connected, interwoven fabric that is Israel. And it says at the end, V'atem ma'aleh ani alichem techar harbe ke'ilu astitam. So, and they will be lifted up. Alita bakodesh. They're going to be made high. They're going to be made high in sacredness. Maybe I could add parenthetically there. For they have a great reward, as great of a reward as their commitment to pairing the beauty of Torah with derech eretz, of taking Torah and having that guide us to make a change in the world, of transforming the world. I see some nodding in the room. Any thoughts? Anything to add? Any comments? Let me know if you want to jump in. Yes.
So I would go.
Mm. Yeah, so there's a few things in there, Janet. Thank you for that rich comment. Another famous quote with derech eretz that's probably best known, derech eretz kadma Torah. again, it's paired with Torah, that derech eretz is actually so significant it precedes Torah. And it's not only walking to another synagogue, but a mosque or a church or a temple or wherever we might visit, that there is some deference to what they are doing in that space, and other teachings that contribute to that understanding. Al tifrosh min hatzibur, don't separate yourself from the community. I'm not going to be so chutzpahdik to come in and say, you know what, I say this prayer differently, and everyone needs to change it to how I say it. It's also, as you pointed out, I think that's a good thought. I've never thought about it. It's also an issue of derech eretz, because that's rude, right? I think that might, yeah, I mean, that might be answered in the pairing of there is Torah, that we can't leave Torah behind. Uh, right, and there are other parts of Judaism, as there are other parts of every religion, that are a little more insular and a little bit more homogeneous, I would say. There's it's a totally different discussion, but anyone who wants to pick up Masechet Avodah Zarah, the tractate of the Talmud that's about alien practice and alien worship, we see a lot of rules in there that are followed. Like, I have an uncle who's from, he won't even go into a non-Jewish place of worship. When I was becoming bar mitzvah, he had a big problem because I had a female rabbi. And so I think he attended my service from the hall. He didn't actually come into the sanctuary. And and anyway, he's got his own principles. They're not mine. We still find a way to both fit underneath this tent of Israel, and that's life. Thank you, Natalie, for pointing that out. It's not so simple always. Can we go to the next text, please? Here we go. All right, this is from chapter 3 of Pirkei Avot. We had chapter 1, then we had chapter 2, now we have chapter 3. There's 5 chapters. Let's see if we get that far. No, we're not, because we got to finish the morning. Chapter 3, and there's 2 actual citations. It depends on how you break up these Mishnayot. Often it's listed as 3:17. Sometimes it's chapter 3, Mishnah 21. Just because there's a lot more. If you actually look at 3:17 on Sefaria, for example, you'll get a much longer text than this. But this one says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, this is my favorite rabbi of Chazal. I just got to stop and say that for a moment. The very first sermon I gave for High Holy Days in Petoskey, Michigan, long ago, was on this rabbi, because he has this incredible story where there's an argument in the yeshiva about who's going to be the Nasi, who's going to be the one who's in charge and leading the yeshiva. And as a result, both of the two that are engaged in the argument, they get disqualified. And there's this guy, Rabbi Azariah, Eleazar ben Azariah, who is a descendant of Hillel the elder. Okay? And so they choose him and say, well, you got good yichus, so you go ahead and take the realm. And he is so freaked out by this responsibility that he goes home all night and he frets and he worries. And he's on his pillow and he's crying to his wife, I can't do this, I can't do this. And finally, exhausted, he falls asleep and he wakes up the next day, and miraculously, his hair has turned white. You see, he was really young, and he thought no one was going to take him seriously. He thought no one was going to listen to him. And overnight, his hair turns white, and so he feels he has that bit of gravitas, I guess, that he can lead. I've always been dreaming of having white hair as a rabbi. I say that all the time, and people don't even believe me. Why would you want white hair? It's because of this guy, Elazar ben Azariah. And he's in the Passover Haggadah too. So extra points if you remember he's my favorite, and come back to me at Passover time in 6 months' time. So what does he teach? He says, Im ein Torah, ein derech eretz. We see that word come up again. This time it's a different configuration in the syntax. It says, if there is no Torah, then there is no derech eretz. If there's no Torah, there's no, how do we translate derech eretz? I translated it differently, I think, here. No right conduct, coming from that word about the way of the land. Okay? Where there is no right conduct, there is no Torah. The two are reciprocal. One is required to be present for the other to be present. The other is required to be present for that one. They can only exist together, or else what happens? What happens? That's a good question. Let's keep that question in our heads as we continue. Where there is no wisdom, and I think it's a bina here, a chokhmah. So we're getting from wisdom to understanding. When there's no chokhmah, then there's no Torah. When there's no Torah, then there's no chokhmah. When there is no, wisdom, there's no fear of God. Where there is no fear of God, there is no wisdom. Fear of God, it's a scary word. I don't like to be afraid. Anyone here like to be afraid? Raise your hand. Really, Stuart? You like to be afraid? You like scary movies? There's always one of those. Yeah. Fear of God. Here it's Yirah. We just had these holidays called the Yamim Noraim with that word Norah, Yirah. You can hear the similarity. We had the 10 days of fear. No, that's not how we translate it generally. How do we translate it? Awe, the 10 days of awe. It's that word in English, awe, has taken on a different meaning with time. Today we might say awesome, right? Long ago, awesome was a bad thing. Awesome used to be a bad thing, and awful, we can hear it there, right? Awe is the sense that there's two real paths to connecting with God. One of my another favorite verse from Proverbs, Reshit Chokhmah Yirat Hashem, the beginning of, again, that word Chokhmah that's up there, so we're connecting these two words. The beginning of wisdom is fear of God, and we need both. We need fear of God. We need to know that our actions matter, that what we do is important, that there are consequences if we act out of selfishness or act out of some motivation of destruction or revenge or these things that we might feel within us naturally, but we're supposed to learn to become more peaceful and settled and fulfilled spiritual beings. So we need these two things to go together too. And then we get to Bina. Here's Bina that I was looking for. Im ein Bina, ein Da'at. So without Bina, without knowledge, there is no understanding. Da'at, dot can also mean religion in a loan word here. Oh, and we have one more. Ein kemach. They came back. Okay. Ein Torah, ein kemach. Im ein kemach, ein Torah. Im ein Torah, ein kemach. That is the most famous line. Who's heard that line before? If there is no bread, kemach, flour, there is no Torah. Where there is no Torah, there is no bread. They're talking about food all of a sudden? What's going on here in the text? What's kemach? Literally means flour, like I said. If you wanted to buy it in Israel, that's what you'd ask for at the store. What would we say today if I went and I had a really good day going out and selling stuff? I made a lot of money. I made a lot of dough. Anyone ever say that still, or is that like too dated? You got much dough on you? No? Yeah, dough can be money. Kemach here, sustenance, substance. You need the physical along with the spiritual. They need to go together. Or some might say, we need the raw materials to build our world together, and we need the guidance from within, the Torah from within, to be able to do that too. Even better, right? Exactly, Natalie. So if you're hungry, you can't learn. There's also Maimonides. A bashful student cannot learn. An angry person cannot teach. The emotions need to be settled. We need to feel generally comfortable, like it's Maslow's hierarchy of need that we would have learned years ago in psychology class. We need our basic needs fulfilled and met in order to be able to appreciate this higher purpose. So too, we need this higher purpose fulfilled if we're going to be able to meet our basic needs. Yeah, subsidized lunches are, hmm and they did the same thing was present in New Zealand. It is truly important, and also a basic understanding that we have about human beings. We're all created b'tselem Elohim with the same capacity for internal value, internal growth, and each of us need some basis of nourishment and support in order to thrive. We talk about supporting the vulnerable among us, the orphan, the widow, the stranger, all of those individuals that we know what it's like to be them, to not have, and therefore not to be able to reach that potential. We need both the land and the spiritual sustenance of Torah. One more. We're going to stop at 4. Okay, this is Avot, chapter 4, Mishnah 10. Rabbi Meir. We're going to be learning about all of these characters in our class on Chazal. Meir, one of the most celebrated erudicians of Torah. Meir is the rabbi who has credited any anonymous teaching in the Mishnah. Any anonymous teaching traditionally is said to be attributed to Meir, and he had an awesome wife too. We're going to talk about that at some point also. So Rabbi Meir said, be limited in business. Rather, busy yourself with Torah. Our blessing over Torah, what do we say? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvah v'tzivanu al la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok esek, asok. That's the word up here. So have mima'at, be little, esek. Here, esek means not be busy with Torah, but business. Business. They're talking about our trades. They're talking about the things we go out to do to earn money, to feed ourselves, as we were talking about kemach before. Okay? Rather, busy yourself in Torah. Be humble in spirit, or an alternative reading that I love, because the word up there that is used for humility is shfal, which shfela is like the divine attributes, God's mystical attributes, filling the world and bringing different characteristics to our world. So that idea of pouring down, let your spirit pour out before all people, okay? But if you negate Torah, you become an idler, someone who's not doing a whole lot. Okay? The two go together again, right? Many are against you. Yet if your labor is for Torah, that one merits great reward for themselves. So I'm going to tell you, this is tough. It's a weekday. It's Yom Tov. It means it's supposed to be a holiday. We're not supposed to be working. But how many of us have children at school, or how many of us have people in our family or friends that are working today? I need to raise my hand too. Yeah, I mean, this is an issue of modern life, that we don't give ourselves the breaks that we need always. And that idea that I mentioned at the beginning of our service, that this is a day for us, that we need this day to be able to nourish ourselves, to be able to engage in Torah, to be able to deepen our wisdom and understanding, to know that when we do that, the main word is merit. We bring merit to our community, tradition. We bring merit to our ancestors. And we're about to do that in a big way here as we enter into our service for Yizkor. First, before we go there, we want to make sure that we include some special prayers. We're going to move out of our Torah discussion. Thank you all. I hope there's lots of comments online. Like I said, I would absolutely love to continue some discussions with all of you that joined us in our online community, and I'm grateful to all of you that are here in the room with me. we're going to offer a prayer for healing in the hope that this year we will finally get past this terrible, terrible pandemic in a significant way, although we know parts of it will linger on. Prayer for healing that we hope that all those around us who are affected physically, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, who need mental health, as we talked about so profoundly throughout the holidays, we ask for healing for them. If there's anyone those here with me in the room are thinking of for healing, I welcome you to share their names at this time. For Dan, Steve, and Becky. For Deb Ford. For Ellen, Lauren. For Claire Grossberg. For all those mentioned and all the many more that go unmentioned. We continue with the Misha Berach in our packets. This next prayer literally begins with the words that it is upon us, our responsibility to come together in commitment to serving our eternal God. And on that day, we can bring unity and wholeness and love and support, and peace and health for all who need it. We rise for Aleinu, page 7.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומשה ויקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום בהשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת עינו. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו Ushemo Echad.
You may be seated as we move into our Yizkor service with one of our most memorable Tehillim, one of our most memorable Psalms, Psalm 23. God is my shepherd, I shall not.
Adonai Rohi Lo Echsar In Ode Sheyar B'Tzeini Al Mei Menuchot Al Mei Menuchot Yenaleini Nafshi Yeshoveh Yeshoveh Yancheni b'maglei tzedek Yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo Gam ki elech b'geit hamavet lo irora ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni Ta'aroch lefanai shulchanei getzorirai Nishanta Vashem Roshi Kosi Revaya Achtung Chesed Yidivuni Kol yemei chayai Kol yemei chayai V'shavti beveit Adonai Lo orech yamin Adonai Rohi Lo Echsar Adonai Rohi Lo Echsar
We ask as a community that these individuals we share in a moment are lifted in our hearts, in our minds, in our spirit for blessing. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be for a blessing as we commit our memory to them. Yizkor Elohim nishmot yakirai, may God remember forever these dear souls, Milton Budike, Joel Jack Kramer, Norman Little, Richard Bruce Mullen, Sharon Shebsis, Linda Kaplan Stone, Mark Allen Subelski, Michael Tauber, Roland Waltz, Charlotte Weinstein, Marion Woloch, Bruce Allen Zach, and Robert Zucker, who have gone to their eternal rest. May they be at one with the one who is life eternal. May the beauty of their lives shine forevermore. And may my life always bring honor. May all of our lives bring honor to their memory.
There are days when we feel like something's missing. There are days when our world is incomplete, when what's light just isn't light enough, what's right just isn't right enough. There are days, there are days, there are times when our words don't come out clearly. There are times when our dreams seem far away. There's no one who knows us well enough, no one who we can tell enough. There are times, there are times. With the rising of the sun, we remember them. And when the evening falls, we remember them. When we take an outstretched hand, we remember them. In our highest moment and deepest feeling, we remember them. May their memories be a blessing as we remember them. There were lives that have marked this earth forever. There were lives who indelibly touched ours, whose presence lit the way for us, whose smile lit up the day for us. There were lives, there were lives, there are ways to move forward from this moment. There are ways to take that journey home, to fill the void inside of us when darkness seems to hide in us. There are ways, there are ways. With the rising of the sun, we remember them. And when the evening falls, we remember them. When we take an outstretched hand, we remember them. In our highest moment and deepest feeling, we remember them. May
pause for a moment of quiet remembrance. We rise for the memorial prayer, El Maleh Rachamim, page 9 in your book.
עמסה מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפיך השכינה עם קרושים וטהורים תזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמות כפירנו שחלו עולמם בעל הרחמים יסתירם מסתר כנפיו לעולמים בצרור חיים את נשמתם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבם ונאמר אמן.
Continue into words that we use to uplift the memory, to bring merit to our loved ones, words that speak of our role, our purpose in the world, of serving our world, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, as we said earlier, for the sake of the eternal source of life in our universe. If there's anyone who we'd like to share specifically for Kaddish, I welcome you to do so at this time, adding for sure the name of Florence Vinsky, our member who sadly passed 3 days ago, and we extend our condolences to Stuart and Craig and Lynn and all of Florence's mishpacha. Just lots of comfort that her memory for all of her goodness grows as a source of compassion and goodness in your life. Elsa Conrad, please. Elsa Conrad. So Rabbi Conrad's mother's yahrzeit is also this week. And so we think of Elsa and hope that her memory be uplifted with works of peace and love. Mm. There's a great power in having it on Yisro too. Any others to share? Well, for all those mentioned and the many, many more that go unmentioned, we join in one voice as one community in support and solidarity with each other for these words of God. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam ulomei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudusha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata ushbechata v'nechemata damiran ve'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen.
Oseh
Shalom bimromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. You may be seated. A sacred moment of announcements. Time for the sacred announcements. We are so happy to be able to celebrate together this morning in our chapel with you, our online community, and you have joined us here, especially in person this morning. I want to say shkoach to Janet for a beautiful morning of Shemini Atzeret, but really just a beautiful, beautiful consistency throughout the High Holy Day season in all the ways you've been there for us and for our congregation. You gain strength and maybe a little bit of menucha, a little bit of a rest too. Let's hope for that. To Natalie, who's also been with us at many points throughout the season, we wish you strength in this new year. To Jackie, our stream team member, bringing our online community this morning. To our amazing staff that, as much as we would like to take a break right now, we are going to enjoy our holiday, but we have lots of exciting ways to engage with Temple Kol Ami coming up. On this Friday, our services will be at 6 p.m. On Saturday morning, we have our Torah study at 9:30, followed by Shabbat morning services at 11. We have on Sunday, 11:30, a special presentation as we enter Parshat Noach, Shabbat Noach, the Shabbat for Noah, who built the ark and all of the animals that joined him. We're having an animal show here. So for our young and family and religious school members and anyone who's young at heart too, come to the sanctuary 11:30 a week from Sunday for a special animal show. And I know that there's lots more. There's some flyers that are going to come up. Any announcements I'm missing right now? All right. Well, then with that, we will wish each other peace as we ask for the one who can make peace, to make peace on high for us, to guide us in that effort of creating peace. Oseh Shalom, page 10 in your books.
Oseh shalom bimromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav Hu ya'aseh
shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Moadim l'simcha, may our seasons bring you all happiness. Chagim uzmanim l'sason, our festivals, our times, joy.